Has the reserve list market finally found its bottom? Are you a player who's been enjoying buying cards at these cheap prices? Well, this might be the video for you to watch today. Because in today's video, we'll go over the hottest selling cards on the reserve list this week, but we're also going to discuss the financial impact of the reserve list on future playsets from Wizards of the Coast. Guys, this is going to be a great video. Looking forward to seeing your comments. Let's get it started. Everything has a beginning and everything has an end. Everyone can enjoy price points they really think are favorable, only to come back and have price memory when you remember how good something used to be and you wondered how you ended up where you are right now. Welcome back, everyone. MTG MOX Man here. Thanks again for hanging out with me on the channel today. And if you're new to the channel and you like what you see in the content today, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Turn your notification bells on as I upload daily content each and every day on this channel, so there's always something to watch. Now, for the reserve list and the effects we're having on the market, people are asking me if we are finally near the real bottom. Is this the bottom of the reserve list? Well, there's 2 points of this argument you have to follow. At least in my opinion, when I look at things, the reserve list prices are falling, and that's because of, weak credibility from Wizards of the Coast, angry players, and a whole variety of things in the real world as well as related to the game. But when you reach a certain bottom, a certain level, there are people who are willing to take the risk of spending money on something like this because they believe there'll be a greater return later. These will not be the players of the game. These aren't the average guys who say, oh, I finally get to get myself a Wheel of Fortune. I finally got to get a Fork, a Time Spiral, whatever card they've been chasing for a while. Maybe it's going to be their first piece of power so they can get into playing vintage and old school games. Wherever they may be, those are the players who may be the odd, they buy the odd card. But a speculator, an investor, someone who's getting returns on dollar, they're out there too. Now, a lot left the game. When the prices really started falling, they abandoned their collections, they moved on. But when the prices get this low on certain cards, I hope you've enjoyed the low prices because things like this can now rebound. There have been some unanticipated sales I've seen start to build on a lot of these lower end cards, and some of them will relate to new sets coming out, new things being released, or new possibilities coming their way. When you look at Wilds of Eldraine, and I do this all the time, you got to look at the sets and what they provided before. So you can look at the colors, what they kind of brought to us, what planeswalkers, what enchantments, artifacts, what was kind of there. There was a time when artifacts were the most powerful thing in the game. Now they're kind of like a secondary afterthought. But once in a while, some cool artifact still comes along. But when you look at old reserve list cards that can connect to new cards like in Wilds of Eldraine, you might be thinking, hey, fairies, man, fairies. Yes, Willow Priestess, Fairy Noble. Both those cards might be something that gets bought. They've been bought a lot in the past with the anticipation for Throne of Eldraine. But those sales dwindled. Everything fell back down to earth. Everyone was done. It fell. So now we have Wilds coming up. And we know there's going to be nightmare creatures, which could bring these multitasking giant nightmare fairy type things that could bring popularity back to things like Willow Priestess. The idea that that card can just tap and get a creature out. The Fairy Noble, easy to cast out, has flying, gives all your creatures a defense buff, but also can tap to give them an attack buff. These kind of things which are not created anymore in Magic. These cards don't exist because even by today's standards, they're weak in their own actual power level, but if you get them onto the board, they can change the game state in a way that we usually don't see anymore. Okay, those abilities don't exist in today's kind of standard cards. Things are very linear, and you have to look at it from that macro sense of how much impact will it have. Wizards doesn't care, by the way. They don't care if these cards sell or lose volume. They just know that if they connect the right cards together for themselves, they make a lot of money. So there's players who look at that for the reserve list, and when they see prices this low, 50 cents a card, they're going to say, if I buy 250 copies and I spend $80 and this card jumps up to $7, I only have to sell, a certain X amount of copies to make all my money back. Then the other ones are free. That investment has paid for itself, and it's all gravy somewhere down the road. That's what people look at. I've done it myself numerous times on lots of cards, considering I bought into so heavily on Mox Amber. The Mox Ambers I have in my collection now are totally paid for. They've been bought and paid for by people buying the cards after the prices rose. You can see it sometimes, not always. No one's 100% infallible. It's a game. But those speculators are out there doing what I'm talking about right now. because these sales are starting to boost up in areas I don't expect to see it from players, but I would expect to see it from a speculator. So when we go through the cards, you'll see that today. But as this relates to new sets coming down the road, you know, right around the corner, Wizards will give out the next line of new sets coming up for the following year. They obviously are planning things pretty far out. So you can expect to see certain mechanics starting to link together. And some of those mechanics will have people looking on the reserve list and looking at the price points of reserve list cards and saying, is this the time to buy the cards? This doesn't usually relate to dual lands or the real power, you know, power cards like Power 9, even the Power 10 like Mishra's Workshop or Library of Alexandria. Not those cards. The lower end cards that possibly, like the Ephemerith Enchantress, had this massive login of sales because it works well in the Enduring Enchantments deck. There's those kind of connections that could be made that just Wizards doesn't really care about, but they actively will affect how people decide to purchase cards. And when the cards are this cheap, people take advantage. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these amazing cards, some of the sales going on, and of course I'll be commenting as we go through for the narration part, just so you can see what I'm thinking when I look at these cards. All right, guys, let's get this party started. We're going down the yellow brick road together from number 10 to number 1. This is your top 10 reserve list edition. So here we are starting out at number 10, and from Homelands is Willow Priestess with 40 sales this week. So 40 sales is the lowest sales you're going to see in today's video, which means a lot of cards that almost made it. Cards that got honorable mention, let's say, like Volroth Stronghold at 32 sales, and even Lake of the Dead that I think had 37 sales this week. They don't cut it because it goes by volume. And in this case, the Willow Priestess takes the lead. Now again, it's a 2/2 creature for 2 green, 2 generic, and it says, take a fairy from your hand and put it directly into play as though it were just summoned. It also can give green creatures protection from black until end of turn by just paying some mana multiple times. But when you look at this card, and this is what speculators will look at, people like myself, when you want to try to flip a card, what are the chances? What are the odds that this card is going to hit it big? Or a 10/10 fairy or a 20/20 fairy that has crazy abilities comes out that makes this card that much more pliable, okay? Now the average price tag is only $7. The market price is $6.50. But this card at one point was almost at $20. So it's still well below its averages, but when you have an announcement like Wilds of Eldraine, interest starts to track back to this card. And people either have large positions in the card because this had a massive print run, but by today's standards, these print runs were pretty small, okay? But back then, they were considered very large print runs. So they're holding this card and thinking about it, and some people are actually accumulating copies at this point because 40 is a lot for this card to sell, and that means, obviously, people are thinking about it only in respects to Wilds of Eldraine. Now, number 9 is Devi Excavations, and if you're new to the channel, this is my card of the channel. I always joke and say, you know, my tinfoil hat army of people on this channel, we always buy this card. We are the buyouts that have happened on this channel exclusively. Nobody else has bought this card out but us, and we have done it here on the channel a few times. We got it over 40 bucks. It's kind of like a lark and a fun thing we do here once in a while to show how the market can be manipulated. Now, is this card a horrible card? Well, at a price tag of $22.53, a market price of $22.95, €12.38 to get this card into your house. When you look at this card here in Canada, it's 30 bucks. And if you wanted to buy it on TCG Player, of course, using my affiliate link found in the description of all my videos, click the TCG link, takes you right there. Anything you buy gets associated with my account, and we get a 3.5% kickback here for the channel. If you're buying that card, you'll get it for like $11. It's a very inexpensive card, but with all these new Doctor Who cards, and some of the new concepts we've seen, especially with Rivendell, and I still say Castle Vantress, maybe even Ancestral Knowledge from the reserve list, being able to fix the right cards at the right time has never been more important. And Sol Devi, when it comes into play, you have to sacrifice an untapped island or bury Sol Devi Excavations. It taps for 1 blue and 1 generic, so okay, taps for 2, and it doesn't itself come into play tapped, but you can also tap 1 and tap Sol Devi. Look at the top card of your library. You may put that card on the bottom. So it has a Scry 1 ability, which is a pretty awesome thing to have. When you use this with Rivendell, use it with Castle Vantress with Scries 2 and Scries 2, and Ancestral Knowledge, deck fixing your stuff in a certain order, using Doctor Who at certain times decks. I've noticed you can always have the potential now to just auto cast out massive things by just making sure the right cards are in the right order. So on turn 4, your commander deck could be considered very lethal with all these ways of getting these lands into play. Also for future deck use inside your commander decks, a lot of fun. Now when we go ahead and take a look at number 8 this week, this is Fastbond. This is week 6. Fastbond, as I've stated before, should not be here, and I will continue to say that. I myself own, I think, 1 or 2 play sets near mint condition that I got for like $7 way back before 2020, before things started spiking up. Now, this card is basically banned in every format except one, which I think is vintage, and has an average price of $15.25. The market price is $14.41, and it's €16.85 to get this card to your house, $20 here in Canada. But because it's banned, it shouldn't have the sales it does. It doesn't make sense. And if, for some reason, this card becomes unbanned, of course, the price would stand to shoot up massively. No one has ever contacted me about who's buying this card. There have been some individuals saying, oh, I bought one because I wanted it for a certain deck, or I wanted to get one near mint one for my revised set that I'm trying to complete. But that's not enough to warrant what we've seen here, which is in some cases, we're talking the last 6 weeks, we're probably around 400 sales in 6 weeks. That's way too high for this card. So I'm keeping a very close eye on this to see if there's any unbannings being announced, which would just make me do a massive video. Now, number 7, Elvish Farmer, Fallen Empires. Now, this card was mentioned, I think, in the Twitch live stream, where there could be a way of using future sporelings. So this kind of caught some people's attention. 52 sales this week. At one point, this thing was just over $10 or $12. It's really dropped off here. Average price, $4.33. Market price, $4.34. €4.64 to get this card into your house, $6 here in Canada. For those who don't know the card, 1 green, 1 generic, it's a 0/2. It says during your upkeep, put a spore counter on the Elvish Farmer. Don't forget it is an elf, it itself is not a sporeling. Remove 3 spore counters from Elvish Farmer to put a sporeling into play. Treat it as a 1/1 green creature. You can sacrifice a sporeling to gain 2 life. Pretty slow by today's standards, but there are ways of ramping these cards up, and we don't know what game effects this could have in the future. Keep an eye on that card just in case. If you have a play set, you spend $20 and got it, I don't think you're hurting yourself. It's still a fun deck to build with Fallen Empires. I mean, to think that all the elves got wiped out in one day by the sporelings, like taking over the entire village and stuff, was kind of crazy. Now, number 6 is Scrubland. 53 sales this week. Average price tag, $329.99. Market price, $327.09. And of course, €223.57 to get this card to your house. You can find this card as cheap in Canada as $250 for a heavily played, almost damaged, all the way up to $450 Canadian for a near mint copy. Now, this price with these cards, you notice when you look at these revised duels, look at any of them, you can take your pick, but they're all leveling out. Okay, they're not falling any further. They're all seeming to just slowly trend down by like 50 cents here and there, but they are really leveling out, which means the market has met the demand of the people who actually want to consume the card. So this I don't expect to change much, other than there was a higher volume than expected that it made the list. And it was this one in particular. No other duels made it this close. Now, number 5. Here's Fungus Bloom. Directly relates to what's happening with the Elvish Farmer. 56 sales this week. Average price tag $2.95. Market price $2.92. And of course, the card does come from Fallen Empires. €2.96 euro. It's about $4 here in Canada. So Fungus Bloom, it's an enchantment. Again, this can go into enduring enchantment decks, whatever, but you want to have a reason to put it there. And this one here says, put a spore counter on target fungus. So you're not going to be putting this on the Elvish Farmer, but there are lots of sporelings that you could pump up. There's ways of making them happen quicker. So if you have a way of generating massive amounts of mana, like, I don't know, I guess you could get a Gaia's Cradle out. You could find ways of, I don't know, Mana Flare, whatever ways you have duplicating or tripling over your mana. You could pump out armies very quickly if you can get enough of these things comboed together. So I can see why it would have some uses in Commander where you have a little bit more time to get your stuff going. I don't think people will see it coming, that's for sure. Now, number 4 this week. This is MOX Diamond. I did mention this last week that the sales were almost there. So this has a lot of sales happening. 58 sales this week, and it's in a lot of near mint to light played copies this week, whereas before it was heavily played and moderately played. So I'm not sure why the sales are happening. I have no data to back up why these particular copies were being sold, but the fact is the market moved them and these ones got bought. It could be just the leveling out of prices are at the right price point for players to want to buy the card. It is an amazing card, of course. I mean, I only have one, but still, it's really great. I wish I had a lot more. Now, the average price, $613.60. The market price is $615.85. €435.40 to get this card in your house, $750 here in Canada for a near mint copy, and you can get, I guess, moderately played for around $580. So keep your eyes out, guys. You can find, if you just want a copy to play with, I would go for the moderately played ones because you're going to use it, you're going to play with it, and just hold on to it for a very long period of time, and then you don't have to worry about what the market says. You can just enjoy having the card. Now, number 3 is Balancing Year. This is from Homelands. This is a buyout card of the channel. We just joked around and did a buyout. It was very inexpensive, a couple of bucks a copy on TCG Player. But it looks like the sales had like a residual because more copies got bought later on. Now, there always is a chance, again, with cards like this, that there could be something weird happens because now we've seen more tribal themes. Vampires will come around again. You will see elves come around again, goblins come around. So whenever you add new cards, there's chances for old connections. So taking a closer look at Balancing Year, he is an 8 casting cost, 5/5, summon legend with flying. Whenever a creature is put into a graveyard from the same turn Balancing Year damaged it, put a +2/+1/+2/+2 counter on Balancing Year. You can also regenerate target vampires. That is a powerful ability. Being able to regenerate is something we don't see very often anymore. They don't create regeneration cards because of the convoluted way people view the card when they're using it. So regeneration on this guy, and he gets bigger, means it's a pretty powerful card, and there's lots of ways of giving trample. There's ways of sneaking him onto the battlefield, so I can see why people might want this card in the future. Here it was kind of a joke because it was like $1 something a card, but it kept going. People kept buying it, so that's where we're at. Let's go ahead and take a look at our number 2 card this week, and that is Conchhorn. Now, this has been a continuing card we see here on the channel. There are some people who actually buy this card out each and every week because at its low price point, you'll see here an average of $5.09. You can see the market price of $4.63 or €4.43 to get this card in your house. Here in Canada, it is sold out right now. The most of the stores I checked, the ones that did have it in were like $2 a copy because they were moderately played. If you go on TCG Player, you can find this card for $1 something. So if it's wanted by somebody, why would somebody want it? Collectors, investors have always enjoyed the card. It can be used in any deck. Remember, older artifacts are more like broad range, not so singular like they are today's decks. So back then, this is a 2 generic, 1 to use it, sacrifice the Conchhorn, draw 2 cards, and then put a 1 card from your hand on top of your library. So this is a brainstorm for any deck, any color, which is a very powerful thing to have. Somebody has been accumulating these copies for a very long time. I do know who it is. He comments often, so I do know what's going on with the card. But would you buy the card? Is this a card you need to have? I say buy a playset of 4. I've said it forever. I myself have a couple of playsets. I don't have to buy this card anymore. Nothing can happen to the card that would make me want to sell it because I actually use the cards inside decks. Now let's go ahead. You've made it this far. Let's check out your number 1 card. It is Femrith Enchantress again. With 109 sales. This is the second week in a row, and this, of course, is because of the Commander Masters Commander deck. It's really taking off the idea with this card. The average price continues to climb. It's almost at its all-time high again. You can see here an average price tag of $29.99 US. The market price is $21.88 US. €10.92 to get this card in your house. $40 here in Canada for a near mint copy. Now, it's a 1/2 creature for 1 green, 1 white. It says summon Enchantress. Whenever an enchantment is put into any graveyard from play, draw a card. Whenever an enchantment is put into any graveyard, so any opponents in a commander deck, this thing is a card drawing machine. So keep an eye on this kind of card because people have noticed it. They are buying it. And I thought this, I mean, it will die down. I'll tell you right now, guys. Let's jump out here. This will die down. Just like we saw with Mind Over Matter, these kind of combinations on the reserve list usually don't stand the test of time. People like them, they'll use them continuously, but the market finds a balance. That card will drop in value. It'll go back down to its $12, $13 level. You just got to wait, 120, 160 days. Keep it on mind, it's a card you want to buy. Put that deck you're building aside and wait for the price savings because it is there. It's going to be popular for a while. People like to try these things out, just like with the One Ring. I believe these prices will retrace because history shows us it's done that before. So when you're looking at the market of reserve list cards, are we at the bottom? Is the question really there? No, we have not hit the absolute bottom. Until everything starts going back up or just doesn't fall any further. The fact every card here still drops little tiny bits tells me there's not enough strength or interest right now to save the reserve list from falling even further. But certain cards are definitely starting to balance themselves out, namely the more powerful cards like Dual Lands. They are really balancing out now, but the lower end cards are still falling down. They're only being propped up by people either buying and collecting and saving the cards up or hoping to speculate and flip on them later. Those people are willing to take that deep dive and hold the cards long term will probably be okay in the long run. It's hard to tell at this point to see what Wizards does with the whole new proxying thing they're doing, but we'll find out. We'll be here to report on it, and that's the fun of this game. It's ever changing. Thanks a lot for hanging out with me on the channel today. Thanks for being here and allowing me to entertain you guys each and every day. Looking forward to seeing you guys on the live stream, 6:30 Eastern Standard Time tonight, which is always a Sunday evening, 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. I'll see you guys on the live stream. We'll talk about stuff. I'll see you guys then. Have a great day. Well, we're at the end? The video ended? There's credits going by. Oh yeah, these are for the patrons. Patrons are the ones who support this channel each and every day and allow for daily uploaded content. So thanks again to the fantastic patrons and YouTube membership members. You guys rock. Did you notice? My new shirt came in. I couldn't help myself. I've saved it to the Ramble Jamble section. I was trying to see how it would look in black because the images don't really show up that well. I usually wear my white ones. I have like a few of those, and I bought this too. I mean, some of you guys have actually been purchasing some of this stuff from Teespring, from my link for the store. So it's kind of cool. I did my first cash out. Guess how much I got? I'll tell you right now. Ready? $1.48. You'll notice that if you look at my shirts, I don't charge any, like I make like a penny or two per shirt. The minimum they'll let me make because the shirts are expensive and the shipping's like ridiculous. So I said if I have to do it that way, I'd rather people just wear the merchandise than try to make money off the merchandise. That's ridiculous. I don't know, I thought it worked out. At first I tried to have them like made at home. I know this is off topic, but I tried to have that stuff made like, you know, from a local place. Like you buy 500 shirts and they do it up for you. But I didn't want to do all the shipping. I could sell them a little bit cheaper, but I'm like, then I have to worry about all the shipping and sending and mailing. I don't have time for that. I got work. So I was like, oh, it didn't work out. I did try though. So anyway, for those of you people who bought the shirt, thanks, man. I mean, they're expensive still, but I think this one came out pretty good. Like, I did not... This used to be a famous line I would use on the channel, remember? The professor, like, I didn't graduate Magic University. The guy doesn't even know I exist. I just audited his class. It was kind of fun. Anyway, thanks for being here. Have a great day, guys. See you on the live stream. Good times, man. Good times.